Yo, what's going on, fam out there? We're live back with another episode of the Cannabis Diversity Report. And this week I have my good friends, Mary Jane Oatman from the Indigenous Cannabis Coalition and my brother, Amir. Yeah, well, it's definitely good to have y'all both in the building today. I thought that with tomorrow being Thanksgiving, it was important for us to totally do and to highlight, highlight the experience and work of Indigenous people in cannabis. So first, just to get started, we'll say ladies first. Mary Jane, tell us a little bit about, what you do and how you got started in the cannabis industry.
Well, first of all, Tatsmewi, Himachas Katsiaya, Nunumhanyawa Katsiaya, Oikaloti Token, Pamsik Kena, this show. Thank you, Tahir, for having us here. I am an enrolled member of the Nez Perce tribe of Idaho and a proud mother of 3 beautiful children. And it's been an honor to be working to elevate the Indigenous cannabis presence in the Indigenous space. I am the founder and executive director of the Indigenous Cannabis Coalition, and we publish Tribal Hemp and Cannabis magazine. It's the nation's first publication dedicated exclusively to tribal hemp and cannabis communities. We just launched in February of 2020 with our first issue, and it was such an honor to be able to begin the collaboration and coalition process with what is happening out in Indian country. And I think that was the beauty of doing this work, is realizing that there are people out there, amazing people, dynamic, phenomenal men and women, cannabis entrepreneurs, like the Indigenous Hemp Education Association, who I was able to meet their founder while I was out in Washington, D.C. during my first representation of the Indigenous Cannabis Coalition. There's many great opportunities for tribes and many tribes that are doing very progressive things, and that was the goal: highlight, showcase, and elevate what is happening in Indian country.
Yeah,
wonderful introduction. My name is Amir Caliph El Bey. I'm also known as Chief Red Wolf, of Chief Minister of the Indigenous Hemp Education Association, also author and self-published author of The Indigenous History of Hemp. The Indigenous Hemp Education Association, we're a 501(d) tribal nonprofit, which is a educational ministry. So our ministry is to advocate and promote the history and also the past, present, and future solutions on hemp. So we also have a federal 885A1 exemption to conduct research and development. So we're also exempt from criminal suspected activity in our tribal and native status. And we're operating on the private side to show people the benefits of, operating on the private side and operating up under your indigenous status. So I actually, the weekend I was releasing my book, both of them got a copy. I made sure both of them got a copy. Ms. Mary Jane Oatman has been very instrumental in advocating for, Native and Indigenous hemp rights, and just getting the word out. So, like she mentioned before, I was blessed to be able to be featured in her very first publication, which I considered like an immense gratitude for, because being part of the first is very monumental. So her being able to get me in the very first issue, we've been sharing it with everybody down here in the Atlanta area where we're actually located at. So we're just trying to empower and educate the people as to the options in this industry, because people don't think that they have too many options in this industry, and they just are not educated to the options that they do have. So I appreciate you guys, inviting me on and, being some familiar faces.
Yeah, man, most def. And like you said, we all met in Washington. I guess that's probably going on 2 years ago now. And it was really important for me when I saw the book to kind of highlight that, because I think a lot of people don't really know the long history of cannabis and hemp not only in this country, but in other places. I don't know who wants to start, but could y'all talk a little bit about the, the history? How was hemp used, or cannabis used historically by indigenous people in the U.S.?
Mary J.
Thank you, Amir. So I have been really blessed to derive from a strong oral tradition that passed on the story of the women's economy of the Columbia River Plateau that was well documented by the British and French fur trade journals through the production of hemp, that they were sourcing it, specifically this really fibrous, rich rope from the trade networks, and it was coming out of an area that had no contact. That was our people, the Kamuyamupa people. The Kamu is the Nez Perce word for hemp, for the Indian hemp rope. So I think that when we go back to honoring the fact that we were derived from an oral tradition and culture, and that we, had very strong matriarchal ties. This sacred sister plant is empowered me to be able to find my place in this space to unapologetically advocate for the restoration of our women's economy, because most of our tribal governments, they mirror the larger federal government. And with that inherited, some sources of dysfunction. Our women's voices were lost, our women's roles in our communities that we played. But our seed history goes back over 16,000 years. We have a story of a boat that went adrift during the floods. And while the boat was out at sea, a bird flew over and landed and dropped a seed on the boat. And when our people made it back to the land, they, like we do with all gifts, find utility in that gift and find reciprocity in that gift. So when Lewis and Clark contacted the Nez Perce people in 1805, it was very well documented that we were smoking people, that we had sacred pipes and sacred relationships with plants. And from there, it's just been hit fast forward, and the timber barons have done a wonderful job. That was, I think, the biggest crux of when the New World was developing, is that when they were coming here looking for resources, it never was to be imagined that we would have the insatiable amount of resources that we still have in this nation. And so I guess the reverence for that rope fell to the wayside. When you see endless amounts of trees for miles and miles and miles, you just start to think a little bit differently. And as the New World was developing, that culture shifted. And so we have a lot of work to do, because the land tenure of this nation has a huge shared agricultural trauma for all Indigenous people. And when I say Indigenous people, I mean our Black Indigenous brothers and sisters as well.
Right. All right. So glad you said that. Yeah. Well, just to, camelback off of what she was saying, more into the history of the plant. This plant goes back, like she said, since the dawn of human evolution. We've been using plant medicines, since the beginning of time. The first documented, recording of course, hemp or medicinal use, because I refer to it as the whole plant, as indigenous hemp. A lot of people make the distinction between hemp, cannabis, THC, TCV, CBD. These are all cannabinoids that are found in the same plant. So hemp is a plant that happens just to produce a cannabis flower that happens to have THC, CBD, and all of these components in it. THC just happens to be the one that's on criminal suspected activity. So we understand that we're to rename and change, the thinking of the people by calling it its indigenous name, its indigenous hemp, or in my Cherokee or Salahi culture, we call it Gatunlati. Like I say, it goes back to the dawn of time. It goes back to the Phoenicians, the Syrians. I go through all of the different cultures that documented this plant, whether it be on walls, whether it be on cave paintings, whether it be in the Asian culture, all of the emperors that were involved in hemp, and they understood that it was a powerful plant. So only they understood that only the chiefs, or wise people or emperors were able to use it once they understood the power of the plant. So that's when we see the first prohibition started to come about, actually in the ancient China world, or the Asian world, I'm sorry. So then we move on to, its involvement in all of the wars. Every single war that we've been involved in, hemp has been involved in some type of way, like Mary Jane, reiterated with rope, from sales to, from trading hemp and different herbs, the Napoleon to the Hashishans so we go through the whole history and give people the whole history with the plant dealing in every single culture around the world. Then bring it back to the Americas and talk about our native and tribal contributions to this plant that cannot go unnoticed. It cannot go unnoticed, from the peace pipe, to the different ceremonies that this sacrament is involved in. We have to be recognized and acknowledged in this industry, as as people who are masters already in this field. So we've been, experimenting or using this plant for ritual and spiritual and ceremonial customs for the last 10,000 years. So people who don't look like us trying to come into this game, for the last, 20, 30 years and trying to get 98% of the market doesn't make sense to me at all, and it's time for us to come together. And if they're not going to give us a piece, then we need to take our piece. Simple as that. And to let people know that this is our sacred indigenous plant. You know what I'm saying? Not ours, meaning that it's ours to hold, but it's ours that we've cultivated, that we've kept sacred, that we've been able to use through our different indigenous and native cultures and aboriginal cultures worldwide, So the book is like I say, is a culmination of all of the worldwide indigenous people's histories, and then letting people know also about the solutions that the plant can bring, from from all of the different fibers to plants to paint to cars to houses now, to all of the different uses that this plant has. This plant can literally save the world. This plant is here to save the world. We know that hemp has healing properties when you plant it in the soil. We know that it helps soak up the radiation out of the air. We know that it helps eliminate pollution. So with all of this pollution, all this radiation, everything that's going on around the world, our solution is we need to be planting hemp. We need to be healing our Mother Earth by sowing these seeds, these hemp seeds in her, so she can be able to heal herself.
Right. And speaking of, one of the things that I thought was interesting, because like in the book, you do go through all the different cultures through time and how they've used hemp. And specifically, as it talks about, like in the US indigenous people, you talked about the importance of the peace pipe. Another thing that I thought, especially timely, you just mentioned.
That's my company mantra, man. For a reason, I picked that particular symbol to represent what we've been going through as indigenous people, because a peace pipe represented, as Mary Jane can reiterate, it represented the peace that we extended to the colonizers who came on our land. You know what I'm saying? At that particular time, we passed the peace pipe to them. They took our peace pipe and our medicine and ran off, and we haven't received anything since. So we have to understand the peace pipe is very much a sacred symbol in our indigenous cultures, and we need that peace pipe back.
Right.
So they need to return the peace pipe back to its original owners, so that we can, continue to empower and enrich our future generations.
Right. Well, Mary Jane, can you talk about that a little bit? Because when we talk about those cultures and customs, one of the biggest ones, well, the biggest one that we know about is coming up tomorrow, Thanksgiving, right? What does, what do you say, what does it mean for the indigenous people in this country, and how was cannabis even involved in that initial ceremony?
Well, I would not be so bold as to speak on behalf of the Wampanoag Nation, who was our first contact tribe with the first settlers. But I do know specifically that with the Nez Perce people, so I'm a member of the Nez Perce Nation, and we signed the last treaty, bargained for and negotiated with the United States government. Prior to the treaty council, or prior to the signing of the treaty, there was a lot of bargaining and negotiating. And during this bargaining and negotiating, there was well documented in our treaty minutes in the Library of Congress, a lot of smoking, a lot of contemplation over the peace pipe. The reason that our chiefs actually rejected the smoke of the Soyapo, of the white man. They stopped meetings to go smoke. And so the peace pipe was like the gavel of the ceremony of the treaty negotiations. And so the reverence of her in that meeting became really evident, because the smoke, and we're going to consult with our wives. And they brought the voice of the women into those treaty negotiations. The East Coast natives had a very robust relationship with this. And because they are also very strong oral community, very rich peace pipe history stripped from them and bastardized, because with the introduction and the trade of the peace pipe was gifts, the 3 B's: bullets, booze, and the Bible. The death of the indigenous people. That's what we're still facing. We're still fighting against forced Christianization, the presence of ardent spirits in our sacred homelands, and the reality that our indigenous men and women are still being killed by the federal government through direct and indirect action. And a big part of that is to criminalize the entire rest of the people that don't adapt. Schism. That is the reality, as many of our communities are still trying. 20 day with that breath that we take as we go into with the creator. So everything else.
Science on y'all.
And Brother Amir, of course, the can't more than that, right? And we have a very small piece of the incorporated into that. And you know what that looks like?
Well, state, because that's where all your protections come from. Treaty court codes and ordinances put people in position to be under the genealogy and ancestry, finds out that they have a tribal bloodline to operate up under. So we help people set up. D is private. We don't operate in the public. It's not understanding that the treaty connected back to operate up under the federal exemption program. Your hands being tied, research on it, produce, and no matter what your state jurisdiction say, the D doing, people shouldn't be doing a lot of different things. So that was in the law aspect. So went to federal court to be able, because we see that way or you go on that public side, man, you're gonna be licensed, you're gonna be taxed. So it's understanding your natural birth rights. It's understanding what you like to call it. You know what I'm saying? So we show you how to set your set. This is a 3D illusion. This is all a game that we play. You know what I'm saying? We just seeing this from our 3D. So I read the rule. Space is up under our tribal affiliations and our tribal.
While going to law school, I learned a new term, that institutional
things, by labeling ourselves as U.S. citizens, by that I understand that I'm picking the moves. Even when I was dealing with in the House and Senate down here in early 20 legislator, but they were still talking the whole paradigm that we have to start shifting. There's a lot of people that we have to educate. Nobody wanted to educate, and that's what our people need the most is education. Education I'm here for, you know.
Right. And I know you're educating with the book, and Mary Jane, you're educating with the magazine. And you said that you're currently on your tour right now.
Tribes who are very strong in asserting their tribal sovereignty, but have entered into compacts. Many 502 rec, they made sure in the legislature to protect all nuances of tribal, and that's where I think a lot of the ads they just forgot about men. That's where acting do it the public way too, and they want to try to do it within their own in there that's just super duper against it. And he's 2014.
Tell them again, tell it who's best. There's still people who do you come up. So like I demonstrate, you know what I'm saying, on a level to, you know what I'm saying, which is, you know, this is the nature of business. If you're in business, you understand you have to go to court sometimes, understanding that this is a game that is being the true vision of what they're trying to do, which is divide and conquer.
The more recent decision about transport and has 8 or 10 dispensaries, you know, and they have to deal with, you know, local county, you know, delivery companies. And so the impacts of that tribes, because of it still being federally illegal, that the United States Supreme about interstate tax and cigarette tax between sided with the Yakama Nation. So, and this is just last year, and science building still to do, because if we're having a economy for all people, looks like, and tribes are not at times, but then I realized that's why we need to women that are leading these organizations, you know, and I realized that they had to advocate. And so sometimes even in my own community from my own tribal elders who don't think that this is critical. I mean, I'm down here in California and I'm speaking with one of the young men that speak the plants and the medicine, blessing the grounds before they even start. Indigenous women, you know, on a pedestal to be in, and it's infuriating.
Oh man. Yeah. They gotta respect that cannabis diva spirit, man. Mm-hmm. That's a female spirit that you definitely want to give some, you know, honor and respect to, you know, because she's assisted me so much, you know.
With a sacred responsibility for sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and then I mean, speaking of applications for the medical licenses, and I'll say that I do think it's important that Indigenous people are included in that social equity conversation. Where I started out in Maryland, it actually was African Americans or Native Americans where you got the additional points that qualify for social equity. But I don't know how many states are doing things like that. You know, what do you think about the applications opening up down there in Georgia? What do you think that'll create some opportunities for our folks? Or?
I mean, like I say, honestly, passing some of these laws. So I just know, like I say, it's still a game. It's still, you know, feeding you, spoon feeding you what you should be giving us ours. That's ours anyway. You know what I'm saying? So another reason why you're going to be a license is a permission. So you as an Indigenous people, you're giving up your sovereignty again by going and applying for a license or permission to be up under the jurisdiction for them to tax you. So we show people a different route. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a different route to operate. I don't know what people, you know what I'm saying? That was a research and development for center. They've been having research and development centers that have 885 exemptions since the 40s, bro. Like I say, I personally knew this because my father went to the University of Florida Gators. They have what's called Gainesville Green, which is Florida's West Palm Beach, where we was from. You know what I'm saying? From that research and development facility. So people have been operating up under federal exemption forever, but they just have. I don't have that. You know what I'm saying? But we show people that saying we need to be more focused on processing anyway, as a people. Because everybody wants to grow it, but somebody got to process it so that things can and knowledge of licensing. I don't have any, you know, permission from a different perspective that if all we got to do is just straight up under. So Georgia, when I went into, so that's how I came to him. I came to him with the industrial hemp route. It wasn't about helping patients. They seen the money. They're not people that you want to do business with and thieving since its inception. Ancestors did make treaties with each other and we assert that sovereignty as a people. It's a wrap. They gave
so many people need to hear, you know, Mary, advantage of opportunities in the cannabis industry.
As Amir was talking about earlier, is a lot of the times that I have a consulting company that's just telling them plant. They have not done their own due diligence to be able to.
It's all religious based. So we have our own United Nations Declaration Rights of Indigenous People. So up under sacrament, you know what I'm saying? So people just have to understand the tribal affiliations and, you know, reiterating some new.
Their families connected, you know, connected kin, and our own tribal communities, because we are not going to be able to have that.
The fact. Tell them, sis.
It does, yeah. Treating this beautiful plant like what it is, right?
To reiterate, I don't know if people knew that the reason they're in their own jurisdiction to do what they're able to do, my native kin, and then we can do it together. That we're more similar than different. You know what I'm saying? And we
know that there were, I mean, for one, that he was on tribal land, but that's a good example.
Really consult with their, you know, these tribal elders, tribal government.
Absolutely. Pick up the magazine.
Okay, well, I am on to www.indigenouscannabiscoalition. Deb Howland, our first Indigenous woman elected into Congress for tribes in the future of nation to nation Indigenous hemp and cannabis trade. Shop and Indigenous cannabis, like, I mean, because it's super fire and it's like in the centerfold, and on the back side of the map is a listing of all of the in that space. Hit me up, mjoatman@gmail.com. And now, and that list, as soon as we put it out, we were just getting hit up like crazy. Is that nobody was focusing solely on that and
Right.
and cannabis and Kia Jackson, because I really feel like the Black Caucus Foundation, when she invited me in to speak, but I didn't realize the power in it with our shared agriculture.
Yeah. And are there any of those tribal dispensaries on the East?
Indigenous sister that opened Anacostia Organic. So there's a couple of tribes operating exclusively in the CBD space, but they're opening because they're in such a gray space operationally that they're not.
Right.
So, and brother,
on Facebook, EHE_IATA. The website where you can get the book is www.org.
for rapping with me today.
We appreciate you.
Sponsors from Forefront Ventures, my guys Chris Crane and Mark Passerini. Definitely appreciate y'all being. Peace.